Hello everyone, welcome back to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to be spending the next 45-50 minutes with you all, answering your questions to the best of my ability. I hope you've all had a great weekend. In fact, I hope you've all had a great couple of weeks, because for those of you who regularly tune in, and there are quite a few of you that do that, you know that we didn't have a show last week because I was taking a bit of a break. I took a week's break, and in the end, I actually did take pretty much a full week's break. I hadn't intended to. I'd sort of slated to do some work, the last couple of days of last week, but in the end, I thought, you know what? I'm enjoying the time off. I'm just going to keep having a bit of a break. So it's funny though, because in that process, I've really come back feeling a bit energized and a bit excited about not only the remainder of the year, term 4 for us in the Southern Hemisphere, but for next year. I've sort of started to dream and, strategize and think about the things that we can be doing. And as you know, from 2 weeks ago, I kind of gave you a little bit of an insight into the fact that I will be starting, in fact, I start on Wednesday, to develop a brand new course for absolute beginners. So as you know, we've got Voice Essentials 1, 2, and 3 online courses, and they are fabulous for the majority of people who are really wanting to get their voice going and get their voice developing, and technically speaking. But there are people, and you may be one of them watching now, who, for whatever reason, that sort of starts one step above where you really need to step. And so I'm creating a prequel course, if you will, like a singing 101, a preparatory course that is only going to be about 5 modules, but it's really going to birth you into this singing thing. And so we're going to talk about what is a note and how to sing just a note, and how do you know that that's in tune. And then we're going to talk about voice care, and I'm going to talk about vocal anatomy, and then we're going to also look at the 8 pillars of vocal technique. We're going to talk about vocal warm-ups, why, how, when, where. So we're going to really dig deep into those subjects, and I'm excited about starting to develop that. I'll write all the scripts and everything over the next couple of months, and then in January I'll record it, and I'm hoping, it is only a hope at the moment, I haven't actually, etched it into stone anywhere, but I'm hoping that we can get ourselves ready for a launch of that course come April next year. That would be my hope. Stay tuned. I'll let you know. I'll let you know the closer we get going. Now, before I forget, just to let you know, we didn't have a show last week, and we won't be having a show next week, and that's because here in Queensland, Australia, so I'm in Brisbane, which is the capital of Queensland, which is one of the states within Australia. We have a public holiday here next week. That's the celebration of the Queen's birthday, the Queen being Queen Elizabeth II, who is in England, and we still celebrate her birthday. We celebrate it next Monday as a public holiday, so I won't be available. I'll be having another day off. Oh dear. They do sometimes refer to Australia as the land of the long weekend, and that's because we do have quite a few of them. Nonetheless, next Monday we won't have a show. Then we'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll have another Q&A. Of course, the way to never miss a live show is to subscribe to the channel and hit the white bell icon. That's the key point, because when you hit the white bell icon next to the subscription button, then you can be notified, or you can choose to be notified by email, I think it is, by YouTube, to let you know when we're going live. We do these shows most Mondays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which for most of you watching is your Sunday evening, because so many of you watch from the Northern Hemisphere, and it's good to see so many of the regulars in the live chats, and and quite a few new people in there as well. So if you're new to live chat, if you're new to Voice Essentials, welcome. If you choose to engage with us as a community, look, this is not just a channel. And I'm not just sort of this, online person who kind of just does videos. This is a community that we have built over many years now. Voice Essentials is a collection of like-minded, passionate people about singing who really encourage each other. We cultivate and nurture our voices in ourselves and in each other. Another way you can participate in this group is to join our Facebook group. It's a closed group where it's not that we're selective in who participates, but we're very careful in continuing to manage the culture of the group so that it remains encouraging and complementary to you and to your development in your voice. And so we would love for you to do that. So subscribe to the channel, join the Facebook group, and in time I'd love to see you, enroll in one of my online courses and really achieve and realize the full potential of your singing voice. Just a heads up, we'll get to your Q&A in a moment. Just a heads up, over the next couple of months, we are going to have more international guests on the show. I've got Dr Belinda Lemon-McMahon coming on, and she's fabulous. And I've known Belinda and sat on panels at conferences with Belinda, international conferences with Belinda. She is wonderful. We're going to be talking, when we get together with Belinda, we're going to be talking about vocal identity. And this is something that is so important to your formation as a singer. And so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to be having one of my closest colleague friends, Jenni Reeves, is coming on the show. Jenni and I, we have also been to many international conferences together. Jenni is a friend of mine, and she has a private singing studio down in Jindabyne in New South Wales. And she's just wonderful. We are going to have such a good time together. So I'm looking forward to having her on the show. I have contacted another person who has been on the show previously. I won't say who that is yet because I haven't yet heard back from them, but I'm hoping that they'll join us. And if they do, that will be a show not to be missed. So there you go. So all in all, we've actually after today, we've only got 8 more shows for the remainder of the year. One of my students said to me about a week and a half ago, they said, do you realize, actually, I think it was Linda. It was Linda, our wonderful moderator who sits taking all of your questions and putting them into the document for me here. Linda told me, so this is going back, was it 12 days ago to when we were having our private lesson together. She said, Daniel, there's only 100 days left till Christmas. I said, go away, Linda. Oh dear. So we are on the slippery slope towards the new year, and wow, I'm excited to get there, and I'm sure that you are too. Talking about being excited, we probably should get into doing the Q&A. Okay, so jumping straight in, so straight away I can see Kelly has put in a super chat, and if you want your question, you absolutely must have your question answered, then the way to do that is exactly what Kelly has done, and she's put in a super chat. It's where you add a few dollars to your question via the super chat link below in the chat section, and I will prioritize your question because as a thank you for putting in the super chat. So here we go. I'm going to jump in with Kelly's question. Do you have a favorite exercise to release tension before singing after a long day? Any recommendations? Okay, so the scenario you've created for us, Kelly, is that perhaps you've been at work all day, you get home, you've had a full-on day. Maybe it's been a good day, maybe it's been a bad day, but you feel pent up. This is where I'm going to take this question. But then you want to then do some singing. So there are some things that you could do that I think would be really positive, and they're not all singing related per se. So they're really about releasing tension from your body. One possible thing you could do, Kelly, would be to do some tension release meditation, where there are forms of meditation where you clench and go through systematically through your body, and you activate tension, and then you actively release that tension. And that would be a really positive thing, because you're actually giving your muscles permission to release that tension. You could, if you were going to have some, that would be one way, Kelly. You could, if you had some time between when you were going to do what I'm about to say and then when you sang. So I reckon you'd want an hour where you could do some steaming and use a vapor inhaler. Let me see if I can. Whoops, hang on, where am I going? I'm going here and I'm going there. So over here, coming back. This is just coming back over for you. Where am I coming? Coming back to here. So this is a personal vapor inhaler. I used to sell, product like this on my website. I don't do that anymore, but you can order these online. This is the one I always recommend, the Basistos Eco Steam Inhaler. Eco Steam Inhaler. The reason it's called Eco is because it actually comes, when you buy it, it comes a little vial of eucalyptus oil, which you can use if you've been sick and you're not going to be using your voice or placing your voice on any load. Typically, however, I recommend not using any additives into this other than a teaspoon of Himalayan rock salt. And basically, to use it, you actually, as you can take the top off, you half fill it with hot water, half fill it with boiling water. To get that, you don't want to only put boiling water in, because you'll burn yourself once you put this nose cone back on. And you don't want to only put, well, certainly here in Australia, the hot water from the tap, it comes out hot, but it doesn't tend to generate enough steam. So I generally find I have to sort of get a bit more heat into the water, but definitely not all boiling, because you will burn yourself when you breathe on it. And that's what you're doing. The steam rises up, you breathe on it. I've got a whole video on this. I typically refer to this as the singer's bong, and you just breathe on it for about 8 to 10 minutes. What that's going to do is it's going to put not only is it going to put moisture in there, but it's going to put heat in there. And people who do it, certainly when I do it, I experience a real release through the vocal tract. Generally speaking, I'm encouraging singers to use the singer's bong after voice use, after a gig, after a performance. It's a great way to sort of help the voice warm down, to cool down as a part of a cool down process. But it's also, it would also provide a good sense of release of tension. Going back to the meditation idea, just general breathing as a part of meditation is going to release tension. Excuse me. And then also, interestingly, what you could do is physical exercise at the end of a day, which is often something you don't feel like doing at the end of the day. But literally going for a walk, even going for a run or a cycle or a swim, these things that are physical, and so there's physical activity that doesn't require an overexertion of your body, can prove quite helpful. So in releasing, pent up muscular tension. So there's some ideas. Kelly, I hope that sort of comes around to answering your question. Yeah, I hope that's helpful to you. Okay, so coming back over here, Dayloth Mordigian. I always give it a shot. When I'm learning a song, I don't like pitching it up a couple semitones to reach the lowest notes. Is it bad for me if I keep trying to reach those notes? I've got to read that again. Don't like pitching it up a couple of semitones to reach the lowest notes. Oh, okay, is it bad for me if I keep trying to reach those notes? Do you know what I find? It's better to, let's say you've got a song. Let's say you're working, your singable pitch space is around about 2 octaves ish. And that's actually pretty workable. I know online you'll see people bragging about their, 5 octave voice. Good luck to them, that's great. But really, to be able to sing most songs, you only need about 2 octaves. Yes, it can be helpful to have more, and as you develop your technique, and we do a lot of this in the Voice Essentials online courses, is as you develop your technique, you can expect for your voice to be able to navigate a wider range, but don't get caught up in the higher is better, because that's not necessarily the case. Back to the question. So let's say you've got 2 octaves of workable range, and let's say the song requires 2.5 octaves. I'm just pulling this off the top of my head. Now, it's better that you pitch the song so that you can achieve relatively well the highest note, which means that those 2 or 3 low notes that you struggle with that they sit outside of your singable space. Now, why would we do that? Well, first and foremost is because it's much better for you and your audience to actually nail and accurately hit the top note. Your audience is going to judge you far more harshly, the reality of the world, on a screechy, bummed out note on the top than they will if you have a note down the bottom that just simply goes to air. Yeah. And you sort of cheat that bottom note. It's much easier to cheat a bottom note than it is to try and screech a top note. Ideally, we want to be able to sing both. We do ideally want to be able to sing both. But if you're in the situation where you've got to make a choice, that would be how I would orientate that choice. So give that some thought, Doroth. It's not bad for you to keep trying to reach those notes, but you're going to get more bang for your buck in isolating that via a technical exercise like you would find in the Voice Essentials courses, than it is to just be, drilling those notes within the song, which you would also do. But hopefully that makes some sense for you. So going back to going back to the questions at hand. Where are we going? Lakshdeep S, which I recognise your name from previous. Hello again. Sir, my throat hurts during vocal exercises even when I hum. No pain in regular speech. Please tell me what is the correct way of producing voice because my speaking voice don't vibrate anywhere, so I feel difficulty in placing my voice. That suggests to me, the way you've phrased your question there, suggests to me that what we've got going on there is probably the voice is under too much load when you are singing. And the moment you then revert to speech level, spoken values, that load is removed by virtue of the pressure, and so the voice settles and it doesn't create you any vocal stress. I can only, speculate because I don't have you in front of me, but that would be likely as to where it could be, perhaps, maybe. Pallavi, let's go to your question. Coming here, I'm trying to use a few different angles at the moment. You notice that? I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit, Pallavi, namaste, sir. Namaste. I have a question. Sir, can you tell me how many types of voice there are? Sir, can you please explain it? Well, actually, Pallavi, I've got a whole video on this. It's the biggest video on my entire channel. You can look at it regarding voice types. And I actually mentioned the number that I'm about to give you in that video, but I encourage you to go and watch the video anyway. And that is in the Fach system, F-A-C-H, the German Fach system, there are 29 voice types. And this is how complex the voice can be broken down. Now, that all being said, the Fach system is really something that we apply to classical singers only. It doesn't find a lot of use within contemporary voice or even music theatre for that matter. And so you don't want to, I wouldn't be encouraging you to get too caught up in what is, like going into the Fachs, unless you're going to sing classical. If you're going to sing classical, then learning about the German Fach system is going to be very helpful to you. But if not, even if as a contemporary singer you want to do, do ensemble work like Octave, or you want to do, 5-part harmony or barbershop quartet or a community choir, more often than not, you kind of only have to grade your voice, categorize is probably a better word, categorize your voice into one of 6 groupings, and that would be, and this is going from bottom, male, low voice, all the way to the top. It would be bass, baritone, tenor, alto, mezzo, soprano. Now, the funny thing is that whenever I talk about this on the channel, and you can read the comments in my video that's got, I think we've ticked over 1.5 million views on that particular video. There's always that, like, I just regularly get, particularly what I'm led to believe are women constantly complaining that their voice of contralto, that is a female voice type that is lower than alto, that it's always left out. And then I always constantly get accused of leaving out baritenors, which, like that really high baritone that isn't tenor but isn't These are approximate groupings. And the problem, and this is where these, complaints come from, is one size does not fit all. Your voice is unique. I don't know how many more times I can say this. Your voice is unique. It does not need to fit into an exact whole. If you want to sing classical, then the Fach system is going to be really important. If you are wanting to sing on ensemble work, then knowing your rough parameters is going to be beneficial. But I really encourage you, don't find yourself being boxed in. The moment you box yourself in, you are limiting yourself. You are restricting your development. I'm now going to add a further thought, because this needs to be said, because I do see people online suggesting other than what I'm about to say, the exact opposite to what I'm about to say. That is not to say that you can be any voice you want to be. You can't. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? And I often talk about the fact that I'm 5'8". You know, growing up, it would have been nice to be 6'2". You know, probably my male ego would have felt pretty good about that. You know, as I sort of looked down upon all the 5'8" people, and I wouldn't then be a 5'8" person looking up at the 6'2". But my DNA it programmed my body to grow to 5'8". That's that. And apart from very expensive, very, very painful, and dare I say problematic surgery, I am always going to be 5'8". As I am always going to be a tenor. You can hear that in my voice. You know, one of the challenges of my biological instrument is it's high. I am regularly, this has not changed in 30 years of me being an adult. I am regularly misheard as a female voice when I answer the phone. Always. It happens all the time. Now, I am a male who goes by the pronouns of he and him. I am very much a man, but my voice doesn't always suggest that to people when they hear it. I can't do anything about that. And that's after 30 years of developing my voice professionally. And it's also after 30 years of looking to enhance and develop, you know, a richer timbre into my voice so that it's not so bright and pingy and, you know, but it is what it is. I've got to reconcile that, and I'm glad to say I have. I've got to be comfortable with that. I've got to be comfortable in my own skin, because this is the only one I've got, and it's the only one I'll ever have. You have to do the same. You have to become comfortable with your own voice. And, you know, you didn't get to choose what it is. What you can do is be proactive in realizing the full potential of what your DNA parameters will permit. What I do find is that for the most part, most people don't just instinctively, intuitively, naturally form into that full potential, you know, without instruction. Most of us need and require guidance along a pathway of learning to establish that, and the Voice Essentials online courses will do that for you. And so what I encourage you to not fall for is this idea that if you are biologically a baritone, but you desperately want to be a tenor, that you can be a tenor. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Now, of course, when we then start to talk about transgender voice, we're stepping into a very, very niche space that has a whole range of medical and psychological parameters, appropriate parameters, that need to be guided even more intentionally by people who are highly skilled in the direction and development of the voice in that regard. And one of the challenges that transgender voice users find is that it's very difficult. It is difficult. It's a real challenge to be able to present the voice in a manner that is in keeping with how they are choosing to present themselves. So there you go. That was quite... that deserved a super chat. Oh dear. No, I'm just kidding. I'm always happy to answer your questions, but if you do, what are we up to? We're up to question 15. We will not get to question 15. If you want your questions answered, the sure way to get it answered is via a super chat. Jesse Smith, what if it has been a while I haven't been singing? Can it be possible that my voice is destroyed? I mean, it's really been a while. And you then made a comment about it being 2 years, Jesse. No, Jesse, you will be completely fine. You don't have to be concerned about not having used the voice. Now, what you are going to find is after 2 years of non-use, and I take it you haven't been, a silent monk for 2 years, so you've still been using your voice, I would say, for speech. So the mechanism will have continued to be used. You just haven't been using it in a heightened sense for singing. If you think about walking and running, well, speaking is the walking and singing is the running. It's a heightened activity. It's still all the same things happening. It's just a heightened version of the former. So a big part of the development and re-establishing your voice is going to come from getting the voice moving and re-establishing your fitness in the way your muscles are being used. What I can very say to you, Jesse, is if you choose to do the Voice Essentials courses, and perhaps you already do because there's thousands of people that do, if you already do the courses, then what's going to happen for you is it will step you through and help you to establish some vocal fitness slowly but surely. And I wouldn't see you any different, Jesse, to a brand new student stepping into my studio. I don't think you need to build any special, unless there's something in your question that I'm not aware of. There's no special parameters that we would necessarily have to build around you other than just stepping you forward vocally and building your vocal fitness step by step. So for example, I always encourage every brand new singer, you start with 20 minutes every second day. And there are so many people that, boo-hoo me over this. I unapologetically give the instruction of every second day for 20 minutes. And then after a week or two, you build that to 25 minutes, still every second day. Really, for all of Voice Essentials 1, I have my students only practicing every second day, but we build up to the point where we're doing about an hour-ish. Some can do less and some can do more. It really comes back to your biology and what your instrument will carry. And then as we get into Voice Essentials 2, we can start to maybe add an extra day into the week. So you're practicing maybe 4 to 5 days a week for around about an hour. And then once we get to Voice Essentials 3, and by that time you've been doing this for quite some time, you've been singing a lot by this stage, then you can be doing 5 to 6 days a week and maybe even doubling it. So you may be doing 2 sessions of 45 minutes in a day. But that's a lot of singing. That's a lot of singing. The Feel Good Index in the Feel Good Index. Thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the love heart. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, let's come back over here. Coming back over here. I'm going to come back just to give you another look at the studio there. Where am I coming? Carlos Acosta. coming back. Where am I? Carlos, can a bass sing like a soprano with a lot of work? I'm a tenor, but I always had that question. Carlos, I think I might have answered that question already for you just earlier in describing the fact that, you know, if you're a bass, oh no, you're a tenor, then you're a tenor. You know, explore being a tenor. What does it mean to be a tenor? And I often, you know, talk with my students. We so many of us, and I'm no different, you know, in this, you know, we always want what we don't have, don't we? You know, and achieving contentment in life is something that I think we all do well to pursue. Contentment, being content with who we are. That for some is a harder journey than others, but it's certainly something that's really important in our singing. And when we become content in our voice and we reconcile our biological parameters, then we can start to really inhabit that voice. We can start to really be in that voice and be comfortable with that. And that's a positive thing. Faraday, oh, where am I going here? Farida Shakir. I cannot go for higher notes and also have a short breath. What to do? Can't sing continuously because of it. So high notes, short breath, these are all foundational issues technically with your voice. What, you know, there's a great scene. I've just seen that the Matrix Resurrections, I think it's called Resurrections. There's a fourth Matrix movie coming out. For those of you who are not familiar, the Matrix was a really famous movie, got released during the 90s with Jenni Reeves, I think, from memory. Anyway, fantastic. The first one was great. The second one was, and the third one was, what happened? So I'm interested to see what happens in the fourth one. But in the first one, which is great, if you haven't seen The Matrix, highly recommend for adults. Not because it's an adult movie, but because there's some gross sort of things that happen in it. Anyway, take a note of the rating. In the Matrix, there's a part where Neo, who's sort of the lead character played by Keanu Reeves, he wants to train to go into the Matrix. And the young fellow, I can't remember the actor's name or the character's name, says he pulls up a whole heap of, you know, things, and he starts shuffling through them, and he's going, basics, you don't need that. Oh, intermediate, you don't need that. Let's see how you go with this. And so he rams. Neo has not learnt to work in the Matrix at this point. And Neo gets injected into the Matrix in this advanced level course. And the reason being is because he's this sort of messiah, godlike figure within the movie, and you know, the character that injects him into the Matrix for the training goes, well, you don't need all that, you know, intermediate, beginner level stuff. I'm just going to see how you handle this. You know, so many people approach their singing in exactly that way. We all want to approach it as if we are the exception to the rule. That is that we're special, we don't have to do the basics, and in fact, the basics, that's humdrum. Let's just skip that and we'll go straight to singing songs, for example. Problem is that when you always do what you've always done, you've always get what you've always got. Your voice, the only way it can establish new modes of delivery is for it to learn new muscle memory, and to form new neural pathways. But to do that, you actually have to drill the musculature in a new way of behavior. And so few people want to take the time to do that. So few people have the patience required to actually step it out. Now, some people not everyone steps into my studio as an absolute beginner, never having sung before. But more often than not, even my professional students who step in here having gigged for the last 15 years at really high levels consistently, more often than not step into the studio as technical beginners. That is, their voice has not been behaving in an efficient manner, which more often than not is the reason they find themselves in a studio like mine, because they're realizing my voice just won't do what it used to do 15 years ago when it was youthful, when it was pliable and elastic and able to do things. You know, when I look at my son, he's 16, you know, going on 17, and I I do go, oh, I remember those days when my body would do that and behave that way and recover that quickly. I can assure you that as you get older, and this is just a part of the human condition, your body doesn't repair and respond and, you know, behave like it did 30 years ago. And so it is important that you develop sustainable technique, efficient technique, and that takes time. There are no shortcuts. It takes time. You can't just, like with Neo, just throw in the advanced course and boom, away you go. There are those odd exceptions, but the chances are, and I hope you won't take offense to this, the chances are you are not the exception to the rule. I am not, and it's likely that you are not. You might be, but you probably aren't. And that's not meant as an offense. It's just the reality of the world. How are we going here? How are we going for time? Oh, last question, because I just saw the time. I've obviously rabbited on today. I hope hit the thumbs up button, or the thumbs down, whichever you feel is appropriate for today's show. Either would be appreciated. At least you're letting me know where we're at. Andrea Flores, you get the last question for today, unless someone throws in a super chat, in which case I'll answer that, but that'll be the last one. Andrea, can you give some advice on how to master twang and vowel placement? I'm having some trouble figuring those out. Thank you in advance. So they're kind of two different things, although we certainly can place twang, and twang can be involved in placement. But certainly in Voice Essentials, we workshop twang first, and there is an inherent placement in the way we do that. And then we workshop placement, and we may hear twang within that placement, but we typically approach them as separate matters. More often than not with twang, the biggest challenge is too much pressure. 15 years ago, twang, every now and then twang becomes everyone's whipping boy. And I still hold that the reason for that is that twang is more often than not being overdriven with too much air pressure. The beauty of twang is in how little air it uses. It is so efficient on its air use. And so if you're, and even when I work with private students and I say, you know, they say, oh, that feels really tight. Oh, so okay, well, let's see if we can reduce air. So they reduce the air. I still feel a bit, no, there's less, even less. More often than not, people are surprised at how little air pressure is required. Linda, Kelly, if you're on the chat, let everyone know in the chat just how little air is needed. They're my private students. Just how little air is used. In fact, I was working on it with Alyssa this morning, and we're working on twang and reducing the air pressure. So that is something that and also placement. Placement often becomes pushment. and people feel like they've got to push the voice forward to get a sense of placement. In fact, again, reduced air pressure. One of the key aspects of good contemporary voice is how we manage our air more often than not on a sensory level with less pressure, much less pressure. So hopefully that's helpful. I have just seen Ryan's super chat, which I'm going to answer, and that's I've just seen Kelly Clarkson. Kelly Clarkson. Kelly Clarkson is not watching the show. Kelly Morrison is, however. Kelly has just said it's mind-boggling how little air pressure is used. It is mind-boggling just how little air is required to get the twang and the placement. So hopefully that's helpful. Ryan, you get the last question for today, and thank you for the super chat. Let's go over here. So Ryan, long-time watcher. It's like that here in Australia. There's always, hi, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. Where are you? What's the risk of singing high and raspy like Brian Johnson from AC/DC in the long term? I've gotten quite good at singing like him. Others agree from live shows. I'm 25 years old. The risk is high that you can do some damage doing that. If firstly you haven't learnt how to do it in a sustainable way, so do not mishear my response as saying you should never sing like that, it's really bad for you, you'll never. No, that's not the case. However, you can sing like that. There are people, if you go to the Scandinavian countries in particular, like the home of metal, the home of the heavy genres, distorted vocal, there are people that have been doing that, you know, those sorts of sounds for 30-year careers. Like they've been doing it a long time. It can be done. It can be done in a healthy, sustainable way. More often than not, to achieve that, you do have to learn the techniques required to do that. Two pedagogues you can look up in that regard are Melissa Cross. In fact, I had her, I've been thinking we should get Melissa back onto the show. She was on the show about 2 or 3 years ago. We should get Melissa back on. But the other one would be Catherine Sutherland, and you could look into her stuff. Both techniques have over a long period of time, and they approach it differently, but they have both shown over a long period of time that their techniques are sustainable. So you could look into those, but you know, if your voice is just naturally doing it, there's less likelihood that it's naturally doing it in a healthy, sustainable way, but not impossible. It's not improbable that you are. Again, I'm answering this having not heard you, seen you, you know. But what I can say to you, Ryan, and I even spoke with Melissa Cross about this, her stuff is called the Zen of Scream, and you can Google that and you'll find heaps on it, it is always important to orientate the voice back to a neutral, healthy, sustainable sound, that you are making the choice to place distorted values or any other vocal aesthetic on top of. And if I'm not remembering incorrectly, Melissa was all for that. She really encouraged you to always be able to build a habitual, neutral standard of voice, like a home point that the voice always is able to return to, that you are placing those choices on top of. And I would really encourage you to do that. One of the things you've noted that you're 25 years old, and one of the things I would just note for you is your age can be one of the deceptive parts of the whole equation. Is that being, I take it, Ryan, that you're male and that you're 25. Being male and being young are two points that could mislead you into thinking that you're going to be able to do whatever you're doing naturally forever. Firstly, you are going to get older. And secondly, the male voice is certainly far more rigorous than the female voice for the most part. And so it will cop a bit more abuse, for the want of a better term. But at some point, you know, if you keep living living your voice in a space of, if you keep living the voice in a space of credit, like if you keep living the voice in the red, you will go vocally bankrupt at some point. I wouldn't want that for you, but it's important that you learn how to live, you know, in the black, not in the red. And that's kind of, was it Back in Black, which was the Akadaka piece? I think so. Anyway, that's the end of the show, people. I hope that's been a helpful one. Thanks for the super chats, for everyone who put in a super chat. And I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Again, let us know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Either way, happy to get your feedback. We don't have a show next week, so make sure that you do subscribe, hit the white bell icon so that you're reminded in 2 weeks to come back when we will do another Q&A. And one of the things I've been thinking about for next year is to actually do less Q&A. We'll still do maybe Q&A once a month as opposed to every 2 weeks. And for me to do more of a tuition-based thing. Let me know in the comments, and give me some feedback as to what you'd like to see in the new year. I know 2022 is still like 3-4 months away, but we've got to start to think about it, because as Linda so helpfully indicated, we're 90 odd days away from Christmas, so I guess we've got to start thinking about the new year. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great week, and I really do hope that you are safe and that you're healthy and that you continue to sing well, and that you have a good couple of weeks, actually 2 weeks, because that's when we're back. Just said that. Okay. Have a great couple of weeks, everyone. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.